All right, everybody, let's get rolling. All right, so topic of this one is you spent all that money and you still got owned. My name is Joe. Most of you guys know me, so let's get rolling. All right, who the hell am I? Network, web app dude. I like to own shit. AKA, I am the black guy at security conferences. So, in case any of you were wondering, that's me. All right, so how do I do what I do? The way I throw down, I hack, I curse, I drink rum and coke. The order changes periodically, but you know, I've still got my statement. These are kind of like, what do they call it, Turing's primitives. You know, I've got these 3 things I do, and this is all I do. Okay, so let's roll. All right, so let me take you back. Every time I get talking with people, I always end up going back to this like nostalgic moment. You know, I've turned into an old man, you know? So who remembers back in the good old days when pen testing was cool? Like pen testing actually used to be fun. I remember I used to own the hell out of some networks. And I would go into a client's office and I'd be like, hey, I'm the security dude. And they'd be like, oh shit, okay, he's a security guy. And I'll be like, okay. And I would scan. Who remembers when Nessus was free? Like, damn, you had all this open source stuff, and you'd rip the network up, and we only used commercial products because they had reports. That was pretty much it. Other than that, commercial products had no business in security. So you break out all your cool wares, and you did it something like this. You'd nmap and you'd port scan the planet. Remember, guys? Come on, go back with me. Go back with me. Remember? You'd nmap and you'd port scan the planet. You'd roll over to rootshell.be, or you'd get your stuff off PacketStorm. Huh? Come on, guys. Come back with me. Come back. Come on. You'd take all your screenshots because you owned the whole planet, dude. It was just ./own, ./own, ./own. You'd take pictures of everything. We'd put the report up, and the report would say, dude, you suck. That was it. Who remembers? Come on. That was it. You suck. Okay, then after that, what'd I say? Fucking pay me. You suck. Fucking pay me. That's it. And back then, all we wanted people to do was apply a patch. That was it. Dude, fucking patches are free. Just patch the damn thing. That's it. That's it. Fucking patches are free. Right? Remember? Now, everybody's got every fucking thing. There's firewalls, antivirus, host-based shit, network-based shit, XML gateways and load balancers with ASMs and all this bullshit protecting services that they still should have fucking patched. Anybody remember? Come on, right? I pen tested one, right? They got like 3 tiers of load balancers, going through a cluster of web application firewalls with custom rules, going through this whole traffic shaping thing that goes through this, you know, processing application with custom login, all to get around this fucking, you know, Solaris 2.5 box, you know, that you have to access it via telnet. You know, like, does anybody pull a what the fuck? Is it just me? Right, on top of that, everybody's a CISSP now, which I actually think is the fucking disease of our fucking culture. I saw one guy who did an advisory, like it was a vulnerability, and it said the CISSP was the vulnerability. It was like every fucking thing out there, it's like everybody's an expert. And I'm wondering, like, well, what the fuck did you hire me for? Well, if you know so much shit, why is your network so fucked up? So, all right. Now you get into these high security environments, and it seems like because they have money and they spend a whole bunch of money on shit, that it should be secure, because basically I spent a lot of fucking money on it. That's kind of it. Like, hey dude, we spent a lot of money. We're secure. We're just here for you to write up this quick little report that says, we're secure. We spent a bunch of fucking money. Case in point. About 2 months ago, had a customer call me. He says, yeah, Joe, we need this mobile app pen test, and how quickly can you do it? I said, well, you know, I'm kind of busy, and me and my guys are working a couple other projects. He's like, can you start next week? I was like, no. He says, listen, we need this done by the end of the month. And I'm like, you need it done by the end of the month? He's like, yeah, we already told our customer it'd be ready to go. I'm like, okay, so it's a mobile app, you got it for Android and for iPhone? He said, yeah. And you need it tested within the next 3 weeks because it's going to your customer. Yeah. And I'm thinking, you don't see a issue here. What if I find something wrong with it? Are you gonna be able to fix it in time to give it to your customer? And then, you know how that conference call goes, right? Cricket, 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 cricket. No one's thought about this shit. All right, so it's harder to test today because we have so much security shit all over the network. What do we like today? All right, so here's a project I was on recently. So since we're talking about banks, this is a bank. So I'm pen testing this bank, and the customer says, okay, we're gonna go internal black box for this one certain network segments, external black box for these network segments. We got a web app we want you to assess, some wireless stuff. And then they basically say, all right, the project is considered black box until you're discovered. Once you're discovered, pen test is over. Who's like, yay, sign me up. All right, now the further thing that makes it really cool is now the customer says no social engineering or user interaction attacks are allowed. Who's thinking really practical test? Yes? All right, so the overwhelming majority of vulnerabilities being exploited today are client-side vulnerabilities, yes? Stevie Wonder can see this, right? Am I missing any fucking thing? Okay, but now the customer says, Joe, you know, I'm not gonna pay you to tell me I need user awareness training. So I'm like, well, if you're gonna pay me to own the network, dude, I don't give a shit what the fuck you want me to do. All right, so give me my cash, let's go to owning the network. All right, so I jump on the box, and as soon as I log on, I immediately notice, hey, wow, see they got McAfee, they got McAfee Hips, they got Altiris for patch management, they got Big Brother, and these are on each particular host. So now what the customer wanted was like a week-by-week attack plan of how I did it. So I'm like, okay, well if they've got host-based IDS and they've got network-based IDS, I'm sure I need to enumerate the network without port scanning. Yes? Okay, so let's give that a shot. I need to obtain a set of valid credentials. Yes? Is credentialed login ever gonna flag an IDS? So I have to get credentials, right? All right, so I get on one box, I hash dump it, take those credentials, and I start moving from box to box. So once I started moving from box to box with the pass to hash, I found a box where their patch management system had logged in to deploy patches, but the box hadn't rebooted yet. So the patch management system, Altiris, was using a system account. So I grabbed that, escalated to domain admin. Okay, domain 1, done. Okay, so second week of the engagement, I'm domain admin, and you can see down on the bottom left corner, I put my little logo because that domain is now mine. Now I start moving around, and I came across this really cool thing. So for those of you guys who are in the financial sector, what's up with owning Swift? Who's like, what? Yeah, baby, come on, do the dance. Okay, so I own the Swift boxes, and what's cool is the Swift boxes are how the banks transfer money between banks, you know, because that's what we all want, right? Now, why is it when you do these pen tests, the director of information security is always sitting right next to you when you get the coolest shell? Because who's with me? I'm thinking I could move the money to the Caymans and I could be gone. I could be gone. I wouldn't even call, like, who would like not tell anybody? I wouldn't call my mom. I would be gone. Anyways. So started moving around, and then this whole lateral movement thing, owned another domain. And after a while, I owned pretty much everything. Well, I had a little bit of difficulty because I couldn't own those firewalls, but I owned everything but the firewalls. I was really working hard to get those fucking firewalls, and I couldn't. So I ended up telling the customer, you know, we got all of it. I couldn't own the firewalls. And we got by every defense that you had in place. And they had host-based stuff, network-based stuff. They had the XML gateway. They had the load balancer. They had all of that stuff. So now here's the question. Do they suck?
This is from inside or outside?
Both. Okay. Both. Do they suck? I actually disagree. I actually told the customer, hey, there was a couple of things you needed to fix, improve these things, and I think you're okay. And there's a big difference between, for me, telling the customer there's a big difference between here is what is probable and here is what is possible. It is possible that I am going to impregnate Megan Fox. It is not probable. Does that make sense? If the person drops a box and he port scans or he does any of these common hacker activities, then he's going to be detected by the detection mechanisms that are in place. What we need to do now is we need to start establishing an echelon of skill set of the attackers. You need to start saying, okay, the ankle biters will get caught. The ankle biters will get caught. If you have all this host-based stuff, all this network-based stuff, all this login and ArcSight and all this bullshit, the ankle biters will get caught. So now we have to start focusing on the attack methodologies and tactics used by all these guys who love that fucking buzzword, advanced persistent threat. So start looking at what people are doing to own complex and highly secured environments. And that's really where we gotta go. So as soon as we started saying that, it's not that the bank's security sucked, it's just starting to say, okay, you are focusing on defending against X type of attacker. Let's start, now that you got your basics covered, okay, now that you got the training wheels off the bicycle, okay, it's time to start really trying to ride the damn thing. Okay, so how do I attack these companies? So this is kind of my little process on how I do what I do. I'm not trying to say it's the best thing in the world, but this is the Jill way. All right, so first thing that I do when I start dealing with a company is I go straight to Google. Google is it, dude. So I immediately look for SQL injections, cross-site scriptings, and all of that stuff through Google, okay? If I can find those types of flaws, that's a real quick way for me to get a shell. And the reason that I like it is because I'm not port scanning. Guys, port scanning is dead. Let me tell you this one more fucking time. Port scanning is dead. Whatever the fuck you're doing in your SOC, if you're quantifying scans and saying, well, we've got this much port scan data, and dude, I don't know what the fuck you're trying to track. Port scanning is dead. Find your vulnerabilities through the web, go straight for the fucking jugular, okay? You can find SQL injection, not RFID, remote file includes, all these things you can find straight from the web. So if you've got a SOC, are they going to see you port scanning your targets, finding the vulnerable service, banner grabbing it, and then shooting at it with Metasploit? No. It's just boom, one quick SQL injection, or boom, an R57 shell downloaded. That's all that's going on. So you gotta get people to start looking at the ways attackers hack now. All right, next thing, passive recon. How do I fingerprint an organization and figure out what types of things they have in place? Okay, things that I really like, Firefox has a passive recon add-on that does all this stuff for you. Just hit passive recon, and that bad boy will fingerprint like DNS servers, mail servers. It does all the Netcraft stuff, all the Google lookups for PDF files and all that. And I get my metadata out of those files. So I grab all the PDF files, spreadsheet files and all that, look in the metadata, and you can get usernames out of that. And you can also learn the naming convention that the company uses. Okay, so they use first name dot last name or last name dot first letter or whatever the case may be. So I can start figuring out how I'm gonna set up my fish to get into the company. Big thing that I also like to use if I have time, larger engagements is Maltego. So we really like to start mapping out how this organization works, interrelationships between other companies and trust relationships between companies. Maltego is awesome for that. Okay, other things I'll show you guys depending on time. I've got an OSINT report, an open source intel report. Now I no longer do sample document deliverables. When we engage with a customer, we do an OSINT report for them off the top. So as soon as we have our first engagement, we have our conference call, we take a week, we do an OSINT report, and everything that we can gain from public free resources, and we put together an attack plan based on that and give that to the customer. And then based on that, we have another call to see if the customer still wants us to stay in the initial scope that we called and discussed. I found that as soon as I started doing this, scopes started changing. I had a client who called me and he says, well, we want you to assess these 3 subnets and it's over here. I said, that's great. I'm gonna send you a sample document deliverable and an OSINT report. We did the OSINT report, mapped out all their IP ranges, mapped out all their buildings, mapped out who their new hires were. You know, we tracked it all through Facebook and LinkedIn, and here's all the people that we enumerated from their organization. As soon as I gave them that report, they went away for a week, came back and said, okay, we're gonna open up the scope. Okay, we're gonna let you go after these larger network blocks. Okay, for me, I'm finding that's working. I'm encouraging the rest of you, do that. Okay, we sit around and we talk all this shit about what companies should be thinking about, right? Why don't we put that in our reports? Off the top. Now, does that mean you're gonna have some idiot customers? Right? You're still gonna have idiots. I had one customer, and I can't say the name of them because they're just a really large fucking company, but I remember I got on the call with him and he's going through the SOW, right? And you can hear him on the phone, just like, shh, shh. And he's turning the pages of my statement of work, and then he's like, well, Joe, I just don't know if I want something this thorough. Do you have like a PCI Lite? All I want to do is pass PCI. So I'm like, well, fuck, I don't fucking know. I was so flabbergasted. I was so like overwhelmed that he would even ask me that. And you're a multi-billion-dollar company. You know, I'm stunned. You know what I mean? What the? I don't know. This is like when the Lakers lost. I was like, what the fuck? Like, what? Did I just miss some shit? So I had to start kind of working on that. Listen, dude, here's what real pen testing is like. We give your network the fucking beat down. This is vulnerability assessment and vulnerability verification. We scan, we take open Metasploit, we drop shells based on what the scanner says. If that's what you want to buy, you buy it. But I'm not giving you something that says you've had an exhaustive or thorough penetration test. And put that onus back on them. Because if they want scanner monkey work, the one things that I've really been learning, they don't want to pay for good work. And dude, when you pay for peanuts, you get monkeys. And I've learned that. Put that back on that customer and let him know. Hey man, we're not scanner monkeys. I don't know who the fuck you had before who just came out, ran Nessus and ran Core and gave you a report and said your network sucks. I'm gonna give you a report that says your network sucks, but I'm really gonna give your network the beat down. Okay, there's gonna be some value added ass whooping on your network when you hire me. Okay? All right, so next big thing, identify load balancers. Load balancers are run into a lot with really large organizations. The biggest thing you need to figure out, is it HTTP load balancing or is it DNS load balancing? So we come out with Firefox live HTTP headers. It's absolutely my favorite tool for this. You continually make HTTP requests to the server and look at the HTTP header response. And you'll see if it says big IP server OS or in connection, you can see that something is actually modifying your session data. And now you know, hey, there's a load balancer in place. You can also do it with the dig command. Just say dig company.com and you'll see if there's multiple addresses resolving to the same IP. Now, another thing that's really cool that a lot of guys disregard is to just look in Netcraft. You'll look in Netcraft and tons of times it'll say Citrix NetScaler, F5 Big IP, whatever the case is, and you can start saying, okay, so here's what they have, and now we know that there's a load balancer. Let's immediately start testing if the load balancer has an application security module or some sort of integrated web application firewall. Let's start jumping on that right away. Okay? All right, so let's look for IPSs. Now that we got the whole load balancer thing, I think the next thing you really want to start thinking about is what's up with IPSs. A lot of customers deploy IPSs. So big things that I look for is the IPS going to send me a reset packet or is it going to block my address? Okay, now guys, curl, I love my little command line tool. Sorry, I'm an old head. I like Linux command line. That's just how Joe gets down. However, if you look at this syntax, please realize that .. Winintend system32 cmd.exe has not worked since Jesus was walking the earth. I'm just making sure we're all on the same page here. This is not a real attack. We are trying to see if the firewall or the IDS blocks our IP. That's all we want to know. We need to know, is there something there that's going to actively mess with my attacks? So you notice I didn't say, hey, we're going to fire up Nessus, we're going to scan his public external class C. No, we're going to go through Google, see if we can find some really quick SQL injections, RFIs, some stuff that gets us a shell. Next thing, we want to see if there's load balancing. Next thing, we want to see if there's intrusion prevention systems in place. Okay? Because if our quick find the jugular quick thing didn't work with Google, now we need to start figuring out what they have for defensive mechanisms before we start scanning. There's no point in burning 2 or 3 days scanning people's public IP spaces only to find out that they're load balanced or have an intrusion prevention system or a web application firewall or something like that that's going to skew your results. So I had a young pen tester working for me a couple of years ago, and he's a smart kid, backtrack developer, kid savant, fucking brilliant, just great guy, smart guy. So he comes up to me, it's a 5-day pen test, it's Wednesday. So it's Wednesday morning, he comes up to me, he's like, hey Joe, I can't figure this out. I've been scanning this subnet, and it seems like every time I scan them, it's different results. And I look over and I'm like, did you test for load balancing? And he's like, anybody have kids? That look like, I'm like, yes, dude, it's fucking load balanced. So what, you burn 2 fucking days? Yes, it's load balanced. You know? So these are those things, right? So here, we're looking to see if we can get blocked. There's a company called purehacking.com. There's some Aussies. They came up with a tool that's really freaking nice called active filter detection. Essentially what it does is it takes 81 different snort and virus signatures, and just the regular expression of the attack itself, it's not the real attack. So it's the regex of the attack that's put into the packet, and that's what's sent to the target host. And it tests to see if you get a reset packet or if you get your IP address blocked. So what I do is I load that up. I've got a ton of virtual machines and a ton of VPN connections, and then I use a lot of proxies. So I'll do that from all these different IP addresses to start trying to make a map of if they're using an IDS, an IPS, and then what types of things they actually block. The other thing that we want to start doing is we want to start measuring response time. If they have an intrusion detection and a security operations center, they're not actively blocking, there's generally some analysis time, and then they block. What we want to do is we want to start coming up with times of what types of attacks take how much time to block. So when you start seeing the security operations center generally have a 45-minute to 2-hour window between the time that you actually launch a legitimate attack and when your IP is blocked, those are things that I think customers should know. When I tell these things to customers, I get these fucking looks like, how does he know our typical response time is 71 minutes? And I'm thinking, well, what the fuck are other testers doing? Isn't that important data? I have a security operations center that audit and analyze all of the attacks coming in. Well, it only took me 5 IPs to burn of getting blocked to figure out how long it takes you to respond and actually block me. Isn't that a big deal? Is it just fucking me? What? Is this on? Hello? Is that a big deal? Yes, it's a big deal. Okay, please, I would appreciate it if you would nod your heads. Thanks. Okay. So we get to moving on, more IPS, IDS stuff. The next thing that I run into is in my attacks, or my pen testing, less than 10% of companies actually deploy an IPS in active mode. Okay, so if they actually have an IPS out there sitting in front, actively filtering traffic, that's about less than 10% of the organizations I'm testing. However, less than 10% of those people who actually have it actively blocking attacks actually decrypt SSL prior to it passing the IPS. So that's our next test that we do. So I just use XINetD, I set up a little SSL tunnel, and I push all my traffic through SSL to the target. So you're gonna see it's hardcore, one-line ninja scripting, huh? What's up, people? Can you say bash? So it's just one line that pushes all traffic through OpenSSL to the target, and you'll see that as soon as we do that, we run that active filter detection, and we start to quickly see that most people, if they have an IPS, are not actively filtering traffic that's encapsulated in HTTP. They don't have an SSL accelerator or SSL proxy, or their IPS isn't in line in the network in such a way that the traffic is decrypted prior to passing the IPS. So it's one of those things that I don't know why the hell you bought it if you're not going to configure it to actually look at all of your traffic coming in. Okay? All right, next thing is attacking through Tor. I am hardcore on Tor. I know it's slow, but hey, dude, what else you got, right? So I go through Tor quite a bit. One of these things, the reasons why I do this is because I'm a firm believer in your customers should be blocking Tor exit nodes. Customers can get lists of Tor exit nodes IPs and they should be blocking them. They should be daily updated and being added to your firewall block rules. Generally, people do not have legitimate reasons for connecting through Tor to access your corporate website. We're here. So, to me, it's just one of those things that, especially since the exit node lists are so easy to get, we should be blocking them. So, in one of these things, to me, it's just like crying, like, oh my God, the attacker's coming through Tor. Well, dude, you could be blocking Tor exit nodes. It's really not that fucking hard. Okay? Other things are proxies. There are tons and tons of proxy lists that are out there that people could be data mining. And I understand that it's a lot of work and it's time intensive, but you know, I don't see why you wouldn't. You know, you got guys who go real hard on these RBL lists for spam, but they don't go through the same thing for proxies. So in my opinion, I think these are the things that you should be aggressively updating. Okay, so you're seeing that it's really easy to get yourself a good list of proxies and go through proxy chains and push all of your tools, Nmap, Nessus, all of them, through a series of proxies to scan people. Works great. Okay, another thing that I'm starting to see a lot of guys really aren't up on is what are called GLIPE proxies. Okay, GLIPE proxies that, hallelujah, fucking awesome. Okay, you've got these PHP-based proxies that a lot of black hat SEO guys tend to use to bounce and forward traffic from one server to another. And they're just flat PHP boxes out there. So they're not running socks and they're not what are called HTTP Connect proxies, they're actually PHP proxies. So these are absolutely wonderful for bouncing your traffic through because most guys, if they're really up on it, they're just blocking Tor exit nodes, they're not blocking GLIPE proxies. So go out to the web, start getting yourself some good list of GLIPE proxies because I'm telling you, I'm coming at you with these and they're much faster than Tor. Absolutely beautiful.
How new is GLIPE?
Huh?
How new is GLIPE?
I'm talking within the last 3 years, you've seen a huge uptake in GLIPE. Okay. All right, next thing, globally distributed VPNs. For those of you who are pen testers, one of the things we run into is whether the customer makes us furnish our IPs that we're going to be attacking from. And of course I follow that. Really, we do. Really. Yeah. So, a lot of these VPN services are flat out awesome. Generally, they're somewhere between $5 and $15 a month. Most of them will allow you to mail in a money order so that you don't need to pay for credit cards. You can mail in a money order with your email address and then they'll email your creds right back to you. And then they'll give you, you know, a host of, let's say, 20 or 30 sites globally that you can bounce your OpenVPN connection through. So now you can just say, okay, I want to make sure that my traffic is coming from Canada. Okay, let me change. Let me make sure that my traffic is coming through Germany. And it's a fast HTTPS OpenVPN connection. It's really, really good. So for me, the one that I use is, what the hell is the one that I use? Ace VPN, that's the one that I use. But there's a ton of other ones out there. Also really good if you're like me and you travel to a lot of countries where they have a lot of restrictions on what types of websites you can go to. Mwah, absolutely beautiful. All right, so are we forgetting something? And what we're forgetting is web application firewalls. I did a lot of retail penetration testing in the last couple of years, so I was like knee deep in PCI. And the PCI Council, in its infinite wisdom, came up with these really brilliant concepts where they said, if you have SQL injection, cross-site scripting, or any of these web application vulnerabilities, you can fix the source code, or you can buy a WAF and you will now be considered PCI compliant. Who's thinking, fucking good job? That's great. All right, so I have SQL injection, cross-site scripting, some sort of vulnerability. I could fix it, or I could buy a WAF. Fix it, buy a WAF. Fix it, buy a WAF. What do you think most of our customers choose? They buy the WAF. All right, so testing for web application firewalls is just like testing for load balancers. Use live HTTP headers and see if there's any modification in the HTTP header response. So what you do is you send a good request and then send a cross-site scripting request or an SQL injection request. You'll see that the HTTP header responses are different. Sometimes you'll get a 404, sometimes you get a 501, sometimes you get a connection 200 OK, but you'll start to notice that there are differences in the way that the server responds back between good and attack strings. The funny thing about web application firewalls is they're kind of dumb. You would actually think that they've done all this research and they're such cool products, but they're actually kind of fucking stupid. You know, basically any of these things, if you send to it, it announces itself. Like, whoa, you sent a tick. Dude, I'm the web application firewall and I need to let you know that you have sent a single quote. Stop that. So you'll see that, you know, if you make a request for cmd.exe or nc.exe and you notice that there's a change, instead of it giving you a 404, you know, found not found, it'll give you some other type of error code. You've now immediately identified that you're up against a web application firewall. So myself and a couple of other guys, we started fingerprinting these different firewall responses so that we could come up with a way of determining what firewall we were up against and if the firewall was running default or custom rule set. And that's really been kind of changing our penetration testing. So you've got a lot of things like Apache Mod Security gives you a 501 method not implemented. WebNight gives you a error code 99999. No hacking. Okay, and then other ones will give you a 200 OK, like deny all will give you a 200 OK message intercepted, like this, condition intercepted. So this is one of the tricks that we do with web application firewall. So once we've identified the web application firewall, before we even attack the website, the next thing that we want to figure out is what encoding methods does the web application firewall actually understand that the backend understands. So we systematically go through this and you start to see, okay, here it is, I'm putting this traffic in Unicode, and in this case, the web application firewall understands that it's a cross-site scripting, it's script alert XSS. So it's the most generic thing. But we need to figure out what it understands. So Wendell and Sandro, they came up with this tool called WAF-WOOF, and then I jumped on this project because it's written in my beautiful language that is Python. Okay, now let's get this straight right now. I love Python. If you don't love Python, you can kiss my ass. I love Python. So this project is written in Python, therefore it is, in my opinion, a good project. So I figured I would jump right on. So I jumped right on and we started contributing some signatures. You can see that right here we identified Citrix NetScaler from Microchef.com, and we started going after lots and lots of places. So basically every website of the actual vendor generally was running their own web application firewall, so it served as a great place for a good start of the fingerprinting, and then after that on our individual pen tests, we verified that the signatures still worked. So this is the public code that's available, WAF-WOOF. Which actually does web application firewall identification. What we're working on right now is a tool called WAF-Fun. The premise of the tool is that web application firewalls generally do not block your IP address. They will stop the malicious attack by either giving you a reset or a 200 OK or something like that, but they generally don't block your IP address. So if they don't block our IP address, then that allows us now to brute force. So essentially what we're doing is we're building these massive fuzz databases to brute force all the different WAF products since they're not blocking our IP addresses. And we're brute forcing with all the different encoding types, Unicode, UTF-7, UTF-8, UTF-16, hex, base64, and then multiple incarnations of the various attacks themselves. So like maybe the first few letters are in base 64, the next few letters are in hex, the next few letters are in UTF-7, and then putting all of those together to figure out what each WAF actually does for defending against the different encoding methods. And I will tell you this, the overwhelming majority of WAFs suck at handling multiple encoding types together. So as soon as you can map out a rule set of what the web application firewall is going to use, you can immediately add that to all of your tool sets. So now you're just going to use payloads that bypass this WAF. So all of your generic SQL injection cross-site scripting attacks are now back in business. Okay, so WAFs, I'm not really feeling the whole WAF technology thing right now. Okay, Gary O'Leary Steele has got a really good Unicode script. It's written in Ruby, but I won't hold that against him. It's actually a good script. You can see it encode your different attacks in Unicode. This one was against, I think this was in Perva. So yeah, I think this was in Perva where it walked by it with generic Unicode. I could be wrong. It's getting old. Okay, we already covered attacking through Tor. Oh, .NET Defender. I ran into this one really bad lately. Does anybody here work for .NET Defender before I start talking shit about how bad they suck? Okay, no one? And if you do, you're going to be quiet, right? All right. I think it's probably the worst web application firewall on the planet. I think it is just flat out horrible. The admin console is full of cross-site scripting. Just the whole console is full of cross-site scripting. So if you bought the thing, don't read your logs because it ain't gonna be good. When you're actually attacking it, the thing announces itself all over the screen. Like, yo, danger, Will Robinson, danger, you've tried cross-site scripting. So here you can see we've done a generic cross-site scripting. It's alert script, script alert XXS. And the thing comes up with this nasty gram that says, oh, you're being blocked and being logged. So you blocked your request. But the thing that's jacked up is it has some really simple SQL injection signatures. So you're noticing that here I'm doing SQL injection with an OR1 in select user, and it's not blocking it. There's no encoding, there's no tricks, there's no fucking nothing, and it's walk right by it. So as soon as I did a call for select at version, it blocks that. So if there's special symbols in the request, it's blocking that. So if you can do SQL injection with URL encoded stuff, or where you're not using special symbols like @ and parentheses, you're gonna walk right by this product. So as soon as I noticed that they were blocking the @ version call, that's when I actually encoded in Unicode and it walked right by it again. Pretty much every encoding method walked right by this thing, except for when I asked for the admin password. For some reason, that didn't need encoding at all. Huh? It didn't need encoding at all. It flat out blew me away. I was like, okay, I just said function var bin to hex string admin password. Wow, it fucking worked. And that's the web application firewall. You've got to be kidding me. So the funny thing about this is the first time I've said this stuff at some conferences, and I've started showing this at other conferences, and all these other WAF vendors immediately called me or emailed me or contacted me. Breach was like Johnny on the spot. Like Ryan Barnett was like, hey, Joe, hey, how you doing, man? Yeah, Joe, I saw that you were really doing some attacks against a couple of web application firewalls. Would you mind coming down to our office and talking to us about it? Like, Breach was Johnny on the spot with the shit. Everybody else sent a couple of emails. .NET Defender, I don't know what the fuck they're doing. Sorry, I don't know. So I noticed in the very next patch release that they fixed the Unicode trick, but they didn't fix any other encoding method. Great, huh? All right, so on to the next one. So I think the next big deal is now that we can figure out how to get into the web, let's see if we can get into the land from the web. All right, so things that I absolutely love, SQL Ninja is the shiznit. It's written in Perl, but I'm not gonna hold that against them. It is fucking awesome. So SQL Ninja allows you to use the time-based blind method for SQL injection to upload Netcat, DNS Tunnel, or even Meterpreter. Hallelujah. So it's great for getting your shell. SQL Map now does the same thing where they've got this OS shell trick, and then they've got Meterpreter upload. So it just makes attacking web applications beautiful if they are ASP.NET based. There is another one that I forgot to add to my slides that's for PHP and MySQL based sites. It essentially uploads Linux-based command shell or a web page. When I get down here, I'll look it up and I'll give it to you guys if anybody wants it. It's pretty good, still needs a little bit of work. I wouldn't really call it ready for production pen testing type stuff, but pretty good for some proof of concept, and that's the reason it wasn't in my slides. But it's the guys from securityassessment.com. They're the ones who wrote the tool. I'll look it up, I'll see what it's called. All right, so let's focus on the important stuff now, not getting caught. All right, I think the big deal now is we need to talk about how we evade IDS signatures. Okay, so that's my last topic. And then I know I keep going off on these tangents, but just show of hands. How many of you think the tiger is a punk? Is it just me? I just want to make sure I get this, because if I'm a billionaire, I should be able to be with all the porn stars I want. I'm just, you know, I'm a billionaire. Like, can I put that in the prenup? Bitch, I'm a billionaire. But what? I'm sorry, let me get back on topic. Sorry about that, guy. You ever go through this? Like, I watched this on the news and they're so upset with him. And I'm thinking, he's a billionaire. Like, what? Like, I mean, wouldn't my lawyers be talking to you? Like, look, lady, my lawyers are gonna talk to you. They'll tell you, bitch, he's a millionaire. You know, he's rich. Anyways, let's talk about filter evasion. Sorry about that, I get caught on these tangents. All right, one of the things I run into is a lot of customers will try to stop attacks, web application attacks with like client-side filtering, and we all know that that is horribly insecure. Do not identify SQL injection and cross-site scripting and attempt to fix it with client-side code like JavaScript or VB script. That is wrong. That is wrong. That is wrong. That is wrong. Okay? So it's trivial to bypass. People can save the text as a local web page, modify it. They can use a proxy and bypass it. Again, that is wrong. Okay? All right, next thing I run into is restrictive blacklists, and we still do run into a lot of this where people just say, well, I'll filter out special characters. Well, now he can't use less than sign, greater than sign, equal sign, or anything like that, so he can't say 1 = 1 anymore. But dude, isn't 1 like 1? I mean, it doesn't really equal it, but does it kind of like it? You know what I'm saying? So a lot of people don't realize that SQL injection, specifically SQL injection, and in a lot of cases cross-site scripting, it can be done without the use of special characters. So that's a huge thing that we've got to get developers to understand. You can't just go, well, let me just stop it by just eliminating the use of special characters. Okay, and then lastly, let's jump on signature-based IDS. Okay, now how many of you have this as a mouse pad? Nerds? Come on, where you at? Come on, don't lie like it's just me. I wasn't the only one on the chess club. I competed against a couple of y'all in high school. Come on. All right, so you have your nerd herd chess club, you know, mouse pad that has your conversion from decimal to hex to ASCII char, because we all need this, right? We all need this. Also, another trick that I learned that I thought was fucking hilarious. I've been using Linux for like 15 years. I didn't know you could man ASCII. Isn't that fucking awesome? I just thought that was hilarious. I was like, you can do that? Yeah. Fucking man ASCII. You got the whole damn chart. I was like, I can get rid of my mouse pad? Damn. Okay, so first thing, so we've got our IDS. Remember, Snort can alert, a log, or drop. TCP, UDP, ICMP, so that's the first two areas. And then any source IP, any source port going to our HTTP web servers on our HTTP ports. And you're noticing that the trick that it's actually looking for is tick or 1 = 1 --. And now bypassing the signature is going to be horribly difficult, right? I mean, impossible, right? Because we won't do like 2 = 2 instead of 1 = 1 to bypass this horrible signature, right? Or 1 is less than 2 to bypass this signature, right? One of the things that really kind of surprised me is people don't actually take the time to actually read their IDS signatures. I had the horrible misfortune of being an intrusion analyst for a few years of my life, and nothing has jaded me across the security community so much as when I had to actually write IDS signatures and look at how horrible vendor IDS signatures actually are. And I think that's really what kind of leads us to this false sense of security. How many of you have actually gone to or work at a security vendor that sells a security product? And when you go over there and you go to the dev team, all 2 of them, and you're waiting for it to be this massive research organization, and it's 2 of them, and you're like, okay, so they've got to have this big chart thing that's doing all this data correlation all over the web, the 2 of them. And and then when you go back to the corporate environments, they treat it like, no, our vendor gave us this. They have hundreds of people dedicated to researching this stuff. They've got whole research teams. I'm like, the 2 fucking dudes, the smelly guys. The smelly guys, the 2, I saw them. Them motherfuckers don't date, I saw them. It's only 2 fucking dudes over there. And I've gone to a lot of security vendors. I've even worked at one. Fuck, dude, it's only 2 fucking dudes. The whole dev team, 3 dudes, and 1 QA guy. Like, hey, I make sure the UI looks good. That's what I do. I fix the buttons. The button's too high. It really should be a little lower. 2 dudes. All right, so we see that we've got these trivial-based signatures, and these signatures work great for automated tools. Now, when we really want to start getting into more advanced IDS stuff, we're starting to see my opinion of IDS. I think IDS is horrible. I think it's a waste of time. You know, really what you need is you need people who understand network traffic. You need people who understand your environment, okay? The guy who was speaking before me was fucking brilliant on that shit. He was like, no, we don't need to hire a whole bunch more people. We need to hire some people who know what the fuck they're doing. Fuck, it can be one of them. He's fucking right. It doesn't need to be 50 people. I don't need to spend $200,000 on an ArcSight implementation. If I get one fucking dude who can read Wireshark, shit, I'm good. Okay, so he's right, oh my God, he's right. Hallelujah, man, thanks for standing up for us. Okay, so we start looking at some other traffic signatures, and we're seeing like here you've got and, or, 1 = 1, and they're using PCRE, Perl compatible regular expressions, and we can see that bypassing these IDS signatures are trivial as well, because we're still doing a 2 = 2, and now we've got this %2, the %2D, %2D. We can see that over here in the bypass techniques. And you can see that all that was just the dash dash encoded in hex. And we don't even need to encode the entire attack string in hex or base 64 or anything for it to work, just fragments of it. Because even fragments of it beats the entire signature. And as soon as you start realizing that, you start to see that, wow, you know, we need to just understand that all these devices are meant to stop the ankle biters, period. They're not meant to stop real hackers. Real hackers have time. Real hackers read IDS signatures. They're not meant to stop real hackers, and I think we gotta get past that. And I know I'm probably gonna go over, but you guys got me thinking about something, so I gotta find this here, hold on. I was going through some, okay, where is it? I was going through some stuff and I found some rules for WebNight, the web application firewall. And watch, like today, I won't be able to find it now. There we go. All right, so we'll jump right into source, we'll jump into filter, and all right, so I absolutely love this, and I just think you guys gotta take a look at this. All right, so here's the WebNight settings configuration file that comes up with all of their signatures for WebNight. Okay, so our first thing that we want to notice is what is in the default exclude file. So default excludes Outlook, Outlook Web Access. So that's great. I bought a web application firewall, and is it protecting Outlook Web Access? The answer is no. That's great. Now, Outlook Web Access has never had any cross-site scripting or HTTP redirect vulnerabilities ever, right? Ever? Ever. That's fucking great. Okay. Now, here's the other thing. A lot of people would think, well, hey, since the product is open source, more people look at the rules. So obviously, if more people look at the rules, we see that we have these default allows for entire IP ranges as part of the default install of the product. Now, you all knew that since it was open source, right? Now, here's the thing. Now, the ethical thing is if I'm standing up a new product and I'm deploying a web application firewall, I'm not ever going to steal rules from any other open source product, right? I would never do something like that. Whether I was closed source or open source, I would do the ethical thing and I would sit down and write thousands and thousands of rules on my own. Okay, so what's funny is these fucking rules are being like passed to each other, puff, puff, give, like a fucking joint between all these different web application firewalls. It's like, you want it here? And they just hand the shit over from fucking vendor to vendor, and they're just like, yeah, dude. And it's like no one fucking reads them. I'm standing there and I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? Like the whole fucking subnets, default exclude. Yeah, don't, any traffic coming from these subnets, Let's not even look at that. And it's in more than one product. I've got 3 web application firewall products that are actually taking these same rules where they've stole them from other products. It just fucking blew me away. So as you start scrolling into this, you'll see that there's a default list of commands that are denied. Let's see if I can get down here. Okay, so we've got all these different URL paths that they're not going to let you get to. Can't get to CGI bin, can't get to AdWords, can't get to Etsy, can't ask for databases, can't ask for all this stuff, log file, web stats, can't ask for any of this. Admin/admin, admin login, site admin, can't ask for any of this stuff, can't ask for administrator. You ask for any of that stuff, smack your hand. Don't do that because you're hacking, right? But then, because it's IIS, they've got default allowed virtual directories, because if you don't do that, you actually break the WAF. It's insane. So they've got all these things, and then they've got the actual classes of attacks that they block. Now look, we have to allow C:/dub, C:/inetpub, dub. We've got to allow scripts. We've got to allow IIS help. But all that other stuff we block, because if we don't allow this, the web server actually doesn't work. And we all knew that, right? That's exactly why I bought the WAF product, because I knew I was going to do this shit, right? So it just blew me away that people don't take the time to actually read the rules. Dude, in my mind, dude, developers smoke crack. I don't know if any of you agree or disagree, but some of this shit is just fucking insane. So here we look at the default files that are denied by this web application firewall, and you'll start to see that it's things like arp.exe, at.exe, @mad, attrib, cackles, check disk, cipher. Now, how many of you are actually deploying new servers? You know, anything that's like actually been developed this century, like Server 2008? Anything like that? And have you noticed that they've got these new things like PowerShell and WMIC and Bits Admin and all these new command line tools, none of which are being blocked by your web application firewall usage? Like none. Like none? Like really? Fucking none. Let me say that one more time. Fucking none. Hello, people. This is important shit. It's not being blocked. So if your web application is actually calling locally executable scripts like WMIC, PowerShell for user creation or account management or database pruning or anything like that, none of our applications do that kind of stuff, right? Of course not, right? And we know that that kind of stuff is going to be restricted from your web application firewall, right? Yeah. So it's just one of those things where it just really surprised me that like people don't put the dots together. You know, it's kind of like, okay, wait a minute, so here's the defensive mechanism that I bought. Does anybody actually check to make sure that this defensive mechanism is going to work in my environment for the stuff that I'm running? Or did I just fucking buy it? So when they get owned, it kind of surprises me, because I'm like, well, how did you not know you were going to get owned? Like, did you look at what you fucking bought? Like, so you go through all these things. Now, I've got a couple of things that I really do like. I've got PHP IDS. I think PHP IDS, for as much as it got its ass handed to it over the last couple of years, is a good product, because they were, as a company, they put their balls on the table and was like, all right, dude, fuck me up. So what they do is they go through what's called a smoke test. So what they'll do is they'll say, you try any cross-site scripting, SQL injection, any type of attack payload that you can against me, and I will show you what of my signatures catch it. And if you beat my signature within a couple of days, we add that attack to the signature base. Very much like a virustotal.com kind of concept. And I absolutely think it's brilliant. I think more products should do that. I think more security products specifically should do that. If you're a security product, I think your entire fucking rule set should be out there on the web. It should be like crypto. You should look at it like, dude, if my fucking algorithm is good, or my signatures are good, or whatever the hell that I think is good, it's the shit. Put it out here, fucking test it. If you can beat it, I'll buy you a beer. If you can't, shut the fuck up. My shit is good. That's how I think security vendors should be. And I tell you what, I would buy it. I would buy it. I would recommend my clients buy it. I would have confidence in it. And I like that they're doing that. Mod Security jumped on this bandwagon. Remember how I said Breach, they were the first guys to give me a call? Breach actually brought me out and let me work with them. Ryan Barnett was a great guy. We got in and they were already really trying to work to improve mod security. And I got to admit, man, a couple of years ago, mod security was probably the worst web application firewall on the market. It flat out, it blew, it swallowed, you name it, it did it. It was all bad, right? But what they did was they actually integrated Lua and made a hook between mod security CRS rule sets, core rule sets, and PHP IDS. And they started significantly improving the rules and its detection capability. And what I really think people need to do is start looking at that. Look at how mod security can integrate with Snort. Look at how it can integrate with PHP IDS. Really get down there and find out all the things you can do. And we're not even talking about Breach, the commercial product. I'm just talking just in the open source community, you have a lot of options to make your web application firewall work. Okay? All right, so what you do is you just keep taking this, and modsecurity.org/demo has the same thing where it runs against PHP IDS and mod security rules. And then you can just keep trying all of your different payloads until you find one that does bypass it. It's been absolutely great for me. Go ahead. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Come on, man. You know how we get down. Okay? So it's absolutely the best thing out there. I really like where it's going, and I really hope that more vendors follow suit. If you think your security product is worth a shit, stop doing all this marketing shit and put your fucking rule set out there. To me, it's a put up or shut up, right? Hey, we're open source, we think our shit's cool. And if you're a closed source vendor, I can kind of see it. You know what I mean? Like, you know, hey, you're closed source. But dude, if you're open source, why not do some sort of web portal that allows people to attack your website and see if your stuff is really doing what it says it's doing? I think it's perfect marketing, and I think they need to work on doing more of this. Okay, so signature IDS is a joke. Jumping into the LAN, pretty easy. Metasploit, send the newest browser, PDF, ActiveX, or file format exploit. Okay, we just go to metasploitunleashed.com and read how to use Metasploit or watch YouTube, right? Okay, so something that I really like, there's a guy named Relic. He developed what's called the Social Engineering Toolkit. I absolutely think this is next level shit. The day that it comes up with some cool click GUI, it's gonna be fucking scary. You fire the thing up, and it's written in Python. What? So you fire the thing up, and it just comes up and tells you, like, okay, dude, what do you want to do? You want to do a spear phishing? You want to like clone a website? You want to, Trojanize a Java update? What do you feel like doing? Okay, and it just does it automatically. It takes your interpreter and encodes it multiple times so it can bypass antivirus and all these cool things. So you've got the same type of functionality in an automated manner that your hackers are using. And this is kind of driving toward a point. So the point that I've been working on over this last year, I've got a client who's been compromised with advanced persistent threat. And we got out there and we started looking at the malware, and we realized, well, it's not an advanced persistent threat. It's persistent and it's a threat, but it for damn sure ain't advanced. And I started realizing the more of these APT-based intrusions we looked at, the more that you started to realize the actual techniques were really not that advanced. However, these motherfuckers are persistent for damn sure. You ever watch like Big Bang Theory? It's like fucking Sheldon. They're like, penny. I mean, you're like, fuck, man, do these motherfuckers like take a break? Like, so we're using the same techniques, and then the thing that I think we really want to start doing as pen testers is really start replicating the hacker threat and start doing the same things in terms of lateral movement that these advanced malware are doing, the same things in terms of modifying public code that malware is doing and advanced hackers are doing, so that we can give our customer a more representative sampling of what it's like if they really were to be targeted by some skilled hackers. And stop doing scanner monkey work. And if you're still gonna do scanner monkey work, let the customer know that that's what he's buying. I don't think it's bad for a customer who says, hey, I want you to do a VA, and then I want you to verify vulnerabilities with Metasploit. I don't think that's bad. But I do think he needs to know that that is not the same as me actively targeting you trying to exfil data out of your network. It is not the same, and the customer needs to understand that. Okay, so pivoting into the LAN, Metasploit has a beautiful route add trick. So you just add the route of the host that you just compromised. You can pivot into the network that way. And now you can start attacking all of the different things that they have. I had the miserable misfortune of deploying NAC solutions. After I was an intrusion analyst, I thought I was gonna do like security integration stuff, and I was gonna like deploy security products. So I was already jaded from the IDS side. Now once I started deploying security products, you want to talk about fucking jaded and bad attitude. Me and Radius ain't friends. That's all I'm saying. Me and 802.1x ain't fucking friends. It's kind of like that ex-girlfriend that if you see that bitch in the street, you speed the fuck up. It's like that when I start seeing security products. So things that I run into, a lot of people deploy all this stuff, so let's just go through them real quick. No DHCP static IP addresses, that's a joke. Don't even waste your time with it. DHCP MAC reservations where you're gonna say, okay, each of these hosts will always get the same IP based on their MAC address. I think that's good if you're doing inventory type stuff, or if you've got really robust centralized logging and you wanna make sure that you're not getting mixed up with DHCP. That's when I think that's a benefit, but I don't think that it's a security consideration. Go ahead.
Have certs and passwords and things, so even if you set a static, you could still defend against it.
You can, but the issue with 802.1x that I was just about to talk about is it's basically port security's big brother. So port security, you assign MAC addresses to this port and say, hey, if it's not this MAC address, give them the finger, kill the port or whatever. When you go to 802.1x, what I think most people fail to include is they don't understand how many 802.1x exceptions they're gonna have in their network. So I pen tested one client, they're doing this massive 802.1x rollout to deploy this Cisco NAC solution, and then I'm looking at them and I'm like, so you're gonna categorize all your printers, copiers, and your phones and everything else that needs to be excluded in NAC, excluded from NAC, put it in its own separate VLAN with different monitoring and all of that stuff. And I'm looking at him and I'm like, that's of course what you're doing, right? And he's like, well, why would I do that? And I'm like, because someone would take the IP address or MAC address of one of your excluded devices and jump on your network, thus making your NAC completely useless, right? I mean, we all have this conversation at work when we're discussing NAC solutions, right? Okay, yes, you do, okay? And these are those things that I don't think people really talk about. That if you are going to deploy these things, you have to architect your network in such a way so that it actually makes sense to make these solutions effective. You can't just buy them and drop them in the rack. And the sad thing about it with our industry is if it's not in a 1U, it must not be worth shit. Does anyone ever run into that? Well, fuck, they sell an appliance that's a 1U and it does this and this. Like, that's the whole argument of why we can't do some shit that makes sense. Hey guys, we really should implement centralized login with centralized time and correlates it. Yeah, but so-and-so has a product that sits in a 1U and that fucking thing looks great in the rack. You seen it? Like, that's the whole fucking sales pitch. It looks good in the rack. Did you see it? It's a 1U. Like, give me a break, man. Okay, next thing that I've really kind of taken a look at is a tool called VoIP Hopper. Really got to get on this. A lot of people automatically exclude their VoIP network from 802.1x and a lot of their NAC and security solutions. So what you can do is you jump on, implement VLAN tagging on your laptop, use CDP to discover the network and jump into the voice VLAN. As soon as you can get on the voice VLAN, you bypass most security solutions. On top of that, generally the VoIP network needs to communicate with the call manager, and they put the call manager in the server network with all of their other critical infrastructure. So if I can get on that network with the voice VLAN, I can communicate into the call manager. Generally, people don't make ACLs that say all of my VoIP network can only communicate with the call manager and nothing else. I mean, think about it, dude. Why the fuck does your phone need to talk to any other server? And then they'll be like, yeah, but I can get email on my phone. And I can pick my phone up and take it down the hall. Like, hello? Are you fucking kidding me? You're gonna unplug my fucking phone. Here's my Cisco phone, and I'm gonna carry this big ass fucking brick to the next fucking room for a conference, right? Like, what are you fucking thinking? What Cisco guy thought that this made sense? So yeah, guys, make ACLs that make sense, right? We don't need anything in our VoIP network talking to any other fucking thing other than the call manager, right? So make ACLs that do that. So when people VoIP hop and jump into your voice VLAN, they shouldn't be able to interact with anything other than other phones and the call manager. All right, next thing, dealing with network-based IDS and host-based IDS has been an absolute joke. If you look at what Advanced Persistent Threat is doing, they use net commands, or they use the net commands that are actually called by the native APIs for that. So if you can use native API calls, you're going to walk by most host IDS and most network-based IDS. Also, if you can use tools from the Windows NT Resource Kit, you're going to get around most IDS and most network-based IDS because you're using legitimate tools that aren't considered malware. So if you get things like remote.exe from the NT Resource Kit, I mean, it's not Netcat, but shit. gives me a shell across the network. PS exec, what, man? I mean, all of these things will move you around the network, and these are the things that I don't understand IDS vendors aren't looking for. To look for network enumeration and lateral movement throughout the network. These are the things that I think are more critical other than port scanning, right? Everything in the security space detects port scanning. Okay, what about lateral movement that real hackers use? When I'm on a pen test and I pop a box, I don't port scan anymore. I net view, I find stuff that's got open shares, I move stuff to shares, get people to execute my code, find trust relationships, and move laterally throughout the network. I'm doing it, other hackers are doing it. What the fuck is up with the whole security community in terms of products still looking for port scanning? I don't get it. Okay, other things now that we've really got the whole incognito and token stealing going on. So as soon as you do your net commands to figure out who's in Active Directory, who's in the domain admin groups, immediately after that, let's start searching for that motherfucker's box. So that's what these commands are, wmic, ps logged in, ps exec commands, to find that user that's in the domain admins group and search the whole network until we find his fucking box. Then we jump on his box and try to get him to run some shit for us or token steal and take his cred so that we can be domain admin. All right, so that's the whole moving around the network, past the hash technique that's built into Metasploit, and then we've got the old tricks for doing privilege escalation, access tricks for privilege escalation. Things that I ran into, this was on a pen test recently where I ran into McAfee, where they had McAfee hips turned on. And do any of you guys run into that, where you turn off the antivirus and fucking thing turns right back on? You kill all these processes, the damn thing turns back on. The little hook that I figured out was if you regserve and unload fireepo.dll, it can't fucking restart. So that for me, Jesus, fucking thing just, ugh. Other tricks that I'll do if I can get physical access to a box, I'll actually unhook the box, run a crossover cable to my box, exploit it. That way it can't phone home and say that it's been owned. Then turn off all the antivirus and hips and all that bullshit. And as soon as you get all that stuff turned off, then move all your malware over to it. Other thing that a lot of people don't know is McAfee hips has a default exclude list of files and directories that the hips excludes. So I got that list if anybody wants it, you know, just slip a 20 under my keyboard, you know how it works. I'll give you all that. So essentially, if you can make your malware, drop it in one of those excluded directories or give it the name of something that McAfee excludes, you'll bypass the hips. It's actually a fucking joke. And it's been like that for a couple of years. And pen testers have been using that for a while and McAfee still hasn't fixed it. Okay, Metasploit's got a trick called get system, which goes through 4 different methods of doing privilege escalation to system, and the kitrep pod exploit, which works on newer versions of Windows 7. They haven't implemented the UAC bypass trick for privilege escalation yet, but I got a feeling that that'll be coming pretty soon. And then incognito for owning the domain, where you're just doing token stealing. You're using local admin passwords to move around the network till you find a box where the domain admin was logged in without a reboot. His token is still in memory. Because you're local admin, you can occupy the same space in memory and steal his token. And then you can impersonate him. So as soon as you can impersonate him, you can add yourself to the domain. All right. So if anyone wants to holler at me, that's me. Any questions for me? What's up, man?
So one of the issues with evading IDS is you really have no option in passive IDS to fingerprint what IDS a black box target would have. So what is the general operating conditions that you just assume you're under when you're pen testing? What's the appropriate level of default evading?
So the thing that I go for first is we've got our own little internal metrics that we built up, right? So essentially what we go through is public code, Metasploit, custom code. So what we're trying to do is generally we're coming in through some sort of a client-side vector, right? PDF exploiter or whatever. So are we getting in with our traditional PDF exploits or Java dropper or something like that? And if that stuff is getting caught, are we going to be able to get in with custom Trojans where we make like an interpreter executable and embed it in a Word document or something? So we run into customers who start to think that you're not playing fair because you're actually not exploiting a vulnerability anymore. It's not like I'm using an Internet Explorer vulnerability. I just emailed a straight Trojan to a user because I just needed access. So the first thing that we go for is publicly available vulnerability. Then we go custom Trojan. Now, as soon as we get on the box, what's up with antivirus? So is antivirus or local hips detecting me? Network hips I don't worry about. I always look for local stuff. Network hips is the easiest to evade. Local stuff is the hardest. Getting past local IDS, IPS, and local firewalls, in my opinion, is much tougher than getting past network stuff. Network stuff, as long as it looks like legitimate SMB, never flags. Okay. Also, network stuff with custom encoding never flags. Network stuff with custom protocols never flags. So the things that IDS is really good at is port scans, identifying port scans, and identifying shellcode and clear text. That's what IDS is good at. So I don't really consider IDS when I'm on a pen test as the actual thing that I'm up against. I worry about what's on the host. The stuff that's on the host, in my opinion, is the toughest to bypass. Same thing on the WAF side of the house. A host-based WAF that's running on the web server itself, for me, is a lot tougher to bypass than when they've got a web application firewall hooked to a span port and they've got to apply web application firewall rules across multiple servers. That, to me, is the easiest to bypass instead of one where it's on each individual web server. You know, so you kind of look at it the same way in the network space and in the host-based space. All the action is happening on the host. So Security Operations Center, where they've got deployed host-based IDS and then centralized login with like ArcSight or something like that, to me, those are the ones where we really worry about getting caught. You know, where we really have to make sure we're on our A game and really make sure that we're using all either NT resource kit stuff so that we're bypassing the IDS, we're moving laterally using all net commands or native API calls. That's really where I'm most afraid of getting caught. That's kind of the answer you're looking for. Okay, yourself, sir?
What about these slides? Are they going to be in your slide share or what?
Yeah, sure.
They're not there now.
No, but I'm done with this talk for this year, so I'll be tossing in my slide share. Yeah. Anything else, guys? Bored to tears?
No.
All right. Well, I'm thinking it's about beer 30. How about y'all? Yeah.
Yeah, we got a special on DVDs for the rest of the day. You buy 4 or more than $5 each. Normally, one is 10, but you get 4, it's 20. So we're trying to get rid of it. Huh?